It's the Hero Show. Welcome to the Hero Show, starring the indomitable John Hersey and the irrepressible Andrew Bernstein. I am Andrew Bernstein, and you are indubitably John Hersey.
You got it. How's it going, Andy?
How you? I'm good, John. I'm ready to discuss some heroes. How about you?
Oh, man, am I excited for the inspiring story that we have for you guys today. True story of America's first self-made female millionaire, Madam C.J. Walker.
Yes, the story defies credibility. It's one of those stories, it's like Shackleton's Adventures in the Antarctic. You read it, you go, "Wow, they really did that." I mean, so Sarah Breedlove, right? That was her name. And by the way, Sarah Breedlove's day, so she took the name Madam C.J. Walker later when she got married, 1867 to 1919. So unfortunately, she died very young. She was only 51, but what a life! I mean, first of all, she was born in Louisiana to former slaves, right? Her mother was dead, I think, from cholera. One thing we should point out: all these diseases, was just so prevalent back then that we've been able to wipe them out today. Cholera, if I remember correctly, is a disease caused by impure drinking water, and these diseases were rampant right up into the I don't know, turn of the 20th century, and even in the United States. Anyhow, so her mother dies when she's 5. Her father dies when she's 7. So she's orphaned at age 7. That's not a real auspicious beginning to your life, is it? What do you think,
Absolutely,
John?
yeah.
Is that
And,
a good?
and born 2 years after Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation, she was the first of her parents' kids. I think there were six of them to be born into a at least nominally free country. So, orphaned
Yeah,
by 7,
yeah,
married by 14 to apparently to escape abuse from her brother-in-law.
right, right. Yeah, She's married at 14. What's his name? Moses McWilliams, I think. Yeah, you're right. That's what I've read too. To escape abuse from her brother-in-law. She had a daughter, Alila. Well, how old? So she was married at 14. She's a mother at 17. Her husband dies at 20. I mean, think about this. Orphaned at 7, married at 14, mother at 17, a widow at 20, black woman in the Jim Crow South. What were the odds at that point? If we were going to calculate, her chances to become the first self-made female millionaire. What do you think the odds would have been on that, John? In Vegas,
It's
there
absolutely
was no
crazy. And
Vegas.
and one of her first jobs, she was making $1 a day as a washerwoman, and she would go from that to becoming America's first self-made female millionaire. Absolutely
Yeah,
incredible, inspiring, true story.
right, right. It's an amazing story. I discuss her briefly in the hero book. In Heroes, Legends, Champions, Why Heroism Matters. Is really an amazing story. It's really an inspiring story. So, making it even more amazing, she always said that she had only 3 months of formal schooling. 3 months of formal schooling from a Sunday school literacy lessons at church. That was the extent of her formal education, and still, she went on to these extraordinary achievements. It,
Yeah,
it
by her
really does. It bothers.
30s. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah, no, go ahead, John.
Uh, I learned about her that by her 30s, like a lot of women at this time, her hair was just falling out in clumps, and she had these really bad scalp ailments and dandruff. This was a common thing at the time because, one, these women just didn't have running water in their homes, and they barely ever got to wash their hair. And to kind of to try to keep it straight and from matting, they would use all sorts of things like goose fat, heavy oils, bacon grease. So you can imagine the mess that this stuff would make. It was really gross. And you can imagine the effect that that would have on someone's sense of self-esteem. I mean, these people just they didn't feel like they could really have any pride in themselves because of this. So Madam C.J. Walker saw this huge problem and set out to solve it.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, speaking of price, she said, I have a quote here from her. I had little or no opportunities when I started out, having been left an orphan and without mother and father since I was 7 years of age. That's a tough way to start. But I think she moved to St. Louis, right? Weren't her brothers barbers in St. Louis? I think, and she had her daughter, Alila. Even though, as you pointed out, John, she was making like $1 a day as a washerwoman. She was determined that her daughter would get an education, and so she worked hard to make money so that Alila could go to school. And I think
Yeah, this is a
we
time
should
that
mention
women were
that.
just. Go ahead. Sorry, I think
I
there's a
think we
little
should
bit of a
mention.
delay between us, so I keep speaking over you, but I don't mean to.
Yeah, maybe we should just tell everybody I'm out of town. I spoke on the Hero Book at a tea party last night in the Lehigh Valley in Pennsylvania. I'm at a friend's house now, on my phone. So it's, doing this on my phone. So we may have, I don't know if there's any technical issues here, but I'll be back home later today. So in the future we'll be doing it, doing it from home again, like normal. But I think we should mention another extraordinary woman. Sarah Breedlove started her career in hair care, working for Annie Malone. Who was another uh, hardworking, industrious black female entrepreneur who outlived Sarah Breedlove, Madam C.J. Walker, who tragically died so young. Annie Malone lived, I think, into the 1950s, but
Hmm.
she in the 1920s Annie Malone was a multimillionaire. So she was also a very industrious entrepreneur in hair care. Hired Sarah Breedlove to work for her as a saleswoman, and Sarah Breedlove changed the formula. But used a different formula for hair care. Pomades and shampoos, and went out on her own. And I think they had a falling out between them, as often happens. And Annie Malone accused her of stealing her formula, and Sarah Breedlove, said, "No, I didn't steal your formula." But whatever the details of that business dispute, were, Annie Malone was also a very, very, industrious and successful black female entrepreneur.
Yeah, Malone had a much better education. She grew up in Michigan, had a great education, and was well versed in chemistry and able to do several experiments to come up with a good formula. Hired Madam C.J. Walker, really at the time Sarah, in I think 1905 as a commissioned agent, and she was selling door to door this wonderful hair grower. And it was in 1906 that Sarah Breedlove married Charles Joseph Walker,
Mm-hmm.
and hence the name Madam C.J. Walker. And Charles Joseph
Very,
Walker
very
was a
fancy, Madam
newspaper.
C.J. Walker. Yeah, very, very
Yeah,
fancy name. I'm sorry.
so royal. Yeah,
Yeah.
and he was an advertising salesman, and so from what I understand, he was part of inspiring his wife Sarah to go out on her own, strike out on her own. And the competition between these two was incredible. I really do think that it spurred both companies to grow at a clip that they otherwise would not have. They were sort of like the Tresemme and the Garnier Fructis of the day. So, yeah, Malone was a hugely important part of Breedlove's success. Not to be,
Right.
uh, not to go without mention. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting because in our day, Sarah Breedlove, you pointed out she married Charles Walker in the early 20th century. So I think yeah, she became famous as Madam C.J. Walker. In our day, Madam C.J. Walker is just starting to get some of the credit she deserves for being, a brilliant entrepreneur and the first self-made female millionaire. But Annie Malone hasn't gotten. I don't think she's gotten any of the acclaim yet that she deserves. So we could, while we're discussing Madam C.J. Walker, it's good. It's good that we do a shout out for Annie Malone too, because she was also a very, very hardworking, industrious, and successful entrepreneur. And you're right. She had an education and studied chemistry, and she used her knowledge to develop these hair care products for black women. So knowledge is power, Francis Bacon said, John, and I think Annie Malone is one application of it.
Yeah, and it's especially important to do justice to Malone because in the revival of interest in Sarah Breedlove, Madam C.J. Walker, there's been some real injustice, I think, done to Malone. I don't know if you've seen, but Netflix has a brand new series that came out in March of this year called Self-Made, inspired by the true story of Madam C.J. Walker. And in it, Malone is portrayed as something of a villain and someone who's just very, very rude and very unkind to Sarah Breedlove. And in fact, I don't believe that was actually the case. So yeah, she
Yeah,
she
I
deserves.
haven't I haven't seen Self Made. I've heard about it. They changed the name, right? Annie Malone's name. What was it? Addie Monroe in the film. They changed the name, but it's obviously based on Annie Malone. And I've heard they portrayed her as a villain, and that is an unjust. That in reality would have been an unjust treatment of her, which is too bad. Maybe that'll
Yeah.
spur some other writers or film producers to do an accurate biography of Annie Malone, who certainly deserve, both of these women deserve great credit. And uh, one thing they both did, we're focusing on Madam C.J. Walker, but Annie Malone too. One of the things that she did was to advocate economic independence for black women. And then this is turn of the 20th century. Most black Americans were living in the South. The South was brutally segregated. The Jim Crow regime was absolutely brutal mistreatment of blacks. So there was this was systemic racism. This was institutional racism. At its worst, or maybe not at its worst. I guess it could have even been worse, like with apartheid. But it was very bad, and not surprisingly, most blacks were below the poverty line. And so for Madam C.J. Walker and Annie Malone both to advocate economic independence for black women and to train their employees, to train their sales help to in effect, run their own little mini business and make money and achieve middle class comfort. This was a big deal in the early 20th century. This is a heroic deed.
Yeah, in 1910, Madam C.J. Walker set up in Indianapolis. She settled down there and built a factory, a laboratory, a salon, and a beauty school. And she built an army of about 20,000 hair culturalists, or hair culturists, they were called. She even exported these products to the West Indies and Europe. She was incredibly industrious. But she started with one school and eventually built several. And they did more than just teach the Walker method of hair care. It was a lot more than hair care. There were other aspects of beauty she taught: independence, self respect, self help economics. According to biographer John Blundell, she showed slides to the agents of great black entrepreneurs in order to inspire them to achieve success on their own. And in fact, she helped thousands, tens of thousands of women become more independent and send their kids to better schools and to buy homes and to do all sorts of amazing things.
Yeah, which is amazing, and enormously productive and heroic, even uh, in a society that is more free or more capitalistic than the Jim Crow South was. But given the legal obstacles placed in the path of black advancement, in the South in the early 20th century, is extraordinary. And you're right. The Madam C.J. Walker Company claimed to have trained 20,000 women, to be more independent and run their own business. And so that was the company claim. I don't know what the exact number was. I have no reason to disbelieve it. So yeah, thousands, maybe tens of thousands of women, and also many of the executives of the Madam C.J. Walker Company were black women. So there were real opportunities here that were very hard to come by in the Jim Crow South in the early 20th century. Madam C.J. Walker, was a tremendous boon for the economic advancement of Black Americans, as was Annie Malone. You know, got to keep pointing that out. But Booker T. Washington at Tuskegee Institute, of course, you know, stressed the importance of economic advance, the importance of acquiring skills, of being skilled workers, of being productive, working hard. We're back to work again, right? Frederick Douglass, work. You know, Benjamin
Yeah.
Franklin, work. There's no getting away from that. Booker T. Washington stressed that at Tuskegee, trained his students at Tuskegee, had them trained in practical skills to enable the economic advance of Black Americans. And Madam C.J. Walker put that into practice. You know, she said she was friends with Booker T. Washington. Openly said, she was putting his program into practice, and Annie Malone did it too. So this enabled the rise, the economic rise out of it was the start of an economic rise out of abysmal poverty, for Black Americans.
Yeah, I think Washington was something like around 10 years older than Madam Walker, and and they both really took inspiration from Frederick Douglass. If he was America's first great self-made man, then Madam C.J. Walker, in some respects, was America's first great self-made woman. And just like he said that the key to success is one word: work, 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 work. Madam C.J. Walker famously said, "I got my start by giving myself a start." And she taught this. She taught this to others, and really stressed it to everyone that worked for her. She surrounded herself with people that were better educated than she was, and there was no envy there. It was just that she wanted to constantly learn from these people. And in fact, she became so wealthy that she sort of surpassed her exemplar, Booker T. Washington. And at one point, she became a great philanthropist and gave to his Tuskegee Institute and helped to
Yeah,
proliferate
she
this
sure did.
idea that, yeah, the solution, Booker T. Washington said, solution to racial issues, a lot of people were beginning to learn, is in business, in entrepreneurship. And of course, Madam C.J. Walker embodied that to such a great extent.
Right, right. Where Washington thought that white racism, which was enormously prevalent back then, and not just limited to the South. I mean, it wasn't as it wasn't as physically aggressive or brutal in the North as in the South. But there was an enormous amount of white racism, and the belief that blacks were inferior, and watching. So there was a lot of pushback here, and Washington thought, and I think with good reason, that one way for Black Americans to address this and begin to a slow process of diminishing white racism was to be enormously productive. It was to be honest, hardworking, productive members of American society. And in time, the white Americans who may have racist attitudes now but are honest will say, "Oh, wait a minute, you know, Joe he's a top plumber. He's the guy I want to do the work in my house, and this black guy's got a construction company, and this black woman's a really efficient nurse." And the honest white Americans come to realize how productive and hardworking and honest any number of Black Americans were. And you're right. Madam C.J. Walker put that into practice. Now, she was in the hair care for Black women, but still, entrepreneurship, hard work, productivity. This was the way upward out of poverty. Show white Americans that Blacks were productive, hard work, honest, hard workers. And of course, like you mentioned, one of the things that earning wealth enables you to do is donate to worthy causes. You could be a philanthropist. And there are a lot of causes that if I was wealthy, I wouldn't give my money to, but there are certainly some that I would. And Tuskegee Institute was a great cause, great school, educating young black college students, young black kids, and also uh, she donated. I think she gave the NAACP, which was in its early days, at the turn of the 20th century. It's interesting, isn't it, John? The terminology, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. I mean, you can't use the term colored people anymore. I guess we have to reverse the C and the P, right? The National Association for the Advancement of People of Color, which is a politically correct term. But back then, colored people was just a common term, and the NAACP is famous now, so I guess they can't change. I guess they can't change the name or the initials. But she gave them what at the time was their largest donation. I think it was $5,000 at the time, but the purchasing power in today's money is $77,000. And she donated it, I think, specifically for the anti-lynching crusade, right? I mean, the lynchings of Black Americans mostly in the South was horrendous. We don't even know if these guys committed any crime because a crazed lynch mob never let them go to trial. So it was just horrendous. Madam C.J. Walker donated what was a significant amount of money back then to the NAACP's cause, to the crusade, to try to convince white Southerners to put an end to this dreadful practice of lynching blacks.
Yeah, in addition to just serving as an excellent example to all people, really, of entrepreneurship, she helped fight politically for the cause. So, there were thousands of Black women that were becoming independent. In 1917, Madam C.J. Walker helped to organize one of the first business conferences in the U.S. It was a conference of the Union of the Madam C.J. Walker Hair Culturalists, or Hair Culturists of America. And there, the union president, Margaret Thompson, told the story of going from making about $5 a week to about $500 a week. Sorry,
Wow,
$250 a week, which is about
that's still
5,000 in today's money.
that's a huge advance. That's that's what, like 50 times what she was making, right? But
Yeah, and just
yeah,
and all these people were enriched to the point where they too could give to the NAACP and other charities that were fighting for this cause. In addition, we should say in her political involvement in 1917, that same year as the conference, she had built Villa Luaro in Irvington, New York. This just beautiful mansion that still sits in same neighborhood as the Rockefellers and Edison. She had a beautiful golden piano and music piped in through all the rooms. But one of the really important things that she did, she said that it was an example, a symbol for women to see what can be accomplished no matter where they come from. But on top of that, she used it as sort of a center of influence. She invited politicians and cultural leaders of every race to come and have conversation, to meet, and to really humanize the Black people and to really see how talented they were and how much they could accomplish. So she influenced them both at a personal level and also helped to shape policy through these meetings.
yeah, a meeting of the minds, right? I mean, rather than the violence, the race violence back then were generally white mobs burning down black neighborhoods because like the Greenwood district in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which was very prosperous, and these white racists did not want to see successful blacks. So that was the kind of race violence back then. Today, of course, the race violence is the race riots. Like with Black Lives Matter and Antifa, it's often blacks who are rioting and burning down buildings and stores and everything. Well, burning down somebody's neighborhood, your own or somebody else's, doesn't advance anybody's cause. But a meeting of the minds, like Madam C.J. Walker put it to action at her mansion in Irvington on Hudson, New York. Where you could bring in a very wealthy entrepreneur like that could bring in leading business leaders, politicians, writers, intellectuals, artists, and a meeting of the minds. You could work on solutions, including policy uh, solutions. So that is certainly, she set an example there of what I'd like to see much more of today, whether it concerns race relations or other issues in this country. One of which is education, but will also have education reform could also have an enormous positive influence, on Black Americans. But let me tell you a personal aside here. Irvington on Hudson, New York, is in Westchester County, and I lived there for a long time, and I've been there, not to Lawaro, but the Foundation for Economic Education, fee, from the time it was founded by Leonard Reed and on Hudson neighborhood many times, and it is a nice neighborhood. When you're the wealthiest woman in the country, you could afford to build in that neighborhood. But yeah, she did a lot of good. And let me point something else out, John, that I think you could pick up on. This philanthropy to worthy causes. Capitalism makes this possible, right? I mean, if you can't donate money to Tuskegee Institute to educate NAACP to fight lynching unless you have the money, and capitalism makes that possible. And even the semi-capitalism, open to blacks with so many legal restrictions on what blacks could not do. Even the semi-capitalism was enabled Madam C.J. Walker to be enormously productive, create wealth, make a lot of money, earn a lot of money, and then donate to these worthy causes. So we should point out the causal relationship between capitalism and philanthropy.
Absolutely. I mean, we tend to celebrate these great Black activists, Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King Jr., and we do so justly. But we ought to remember that Black entrepreneurs are an integral part of this story, and every bit as integral as the activists. In some cases, they're both. They straddle the categories. In Madam C.J. Walker's case, that's true. But the Black entrepreneurs are capable of doing what they're doing. They're enabled to by the system of individual rights, a system that protects property. There's absolutely no way that this story could have taken place in, you name it, just about any country that doesn't have a generally free system. Of course, there was still horrible oppression, and we can't even say that there's complete equality today, although I think it's much better than it was in Madam C.J. Walker's time. And look what she accomplished because of the freedom that she had. It's absolutely incredible
Right.
Accomplishment in a culture that you wouldn't expect that to be possible.
Right. No, you're right, John. And let me recommend people here to see the film Uncle Tom. Have you seen Uncle Tom, John? Because if you haven't, I think you're
Oh,
going to like it.
yeah. I have a long list of actually, it's called John's Movie Education, John's Classic Movie Education. I'm constantly adding to it. So I'll have to add Uncle Tom.
Well, I'll have to send an email to your boss and tell him to stop slave driving you so hard so you can watch a few movies. But
Please do.
Uncle Tom, I recommend everybody. Uncle Tom Uncle Tom is a very inspiring story about the rise of a Black conservative movement. Now in our day, it was produced by the great Larry Elder, and you see a number of Black conservatives, including the beautiful Candace Walker, who I love for many reasons. I mean,
Owens,
aside from the fact
Candace
she's a
Owens.
beautiful. Yeah, Candace. Did I say Candace Walker? Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah, yeah. Sorry, I'm all caught up in Madam C.J. Walker. Yeah, the beautiful Candace Owens. And aside from the fact that Candace Owens is a beautiful woman, I mean, she's fearless. I mean, she's absolutely fearless in standing up to the left, and you see these black conservatives, some of whom are entrepreneurs, and talk about running their own business and what a great gift it is to live in America where you could start your own business. And so today it's interesting, isn't it? The the obstacles placed in the path of black entrepreneurs in our day are not the Jim Crow laws, the anti-black racism. It's just the Marxist, socialist policies of people like Bernie Sanders, of that mentality that oppose all entrepreneurs. But yeah, the system that protects individual rights and protects entrepreneurship is the system that creates wealth and enables the kind of philanthropy that Madam C.J. Walker and Annie Malone both engaged in. As I point out something about some of the white entrepreneurs, Julius Rosenwald, was an immigrant, was a top executive at Sears Roebuck for many years. And if the younger crowd doesn't know Sears Roebuck, they were a big department store chain back then. They did a lot of mail order stuff. They were huge, 100 years ago. And Julius Rosenwald contributed quite a bit of money to Booker T. Washington's cause to, one, help fund Tuskegee Institute, but two, the racists in the Jim Crow South had no interest in educating black children. And so Booker T. Washington raised money from northern capitalists, Julius Rosenwald at Sears Roebuck for one, some of John D. Rockefeller's executives at Standard Oil for two, raised money and built thousands of schools for black Americans across the Jim Crow South. And that's one of the greatest accomplishments of Booker T. Washington. And in part, it was made possible by, significant donations from white northern capitalists. And again, you see capitalism allowing good men, they've created wealth, they've made money. It allows good men to be productive, and just the company itself. Sears Roebuck is a great company. Standard Oil is great companies. They're creating petroleum products. They're making it possible for people to buy consumer goods by mail order inexpensively, all over the country. They've already done a lot of good, and now they could take some of the money that they've earned by their hard work, their productive effort, and they could do even more good with it. So capitalism, properly understood, the system of individual rights is an enormously benign system.
You're absolutely right about the barriers to entrepreneurship today. They don't affect just one race. I mean, just to give a personal example, I recently decided that I'd like to build a recording studio in my basement, and perhaps have clients come in, maybe teach some guitar lessons there. And I started looking into what I'd need to do, both to set up the business and to get a zoning variance. And just the amount of paperwork, I started thinking about this several weeks ago, and I've yet to get through just the basic research that I need to do to figure out how I'm going to be able to start this business. Madam C.J. Walker, when she decided to start her business, guess what? She didn't have to do that. She just started creating a formula in her kitchen, selling out of her house, going to a public market, selling it there. There was no sort of licensing, restrictions, regulations, the red tape that is today just keeping entrepreneurs from making any sort of progress. That's the problem. That's the problem we face today. And if you look at BLM and what they're doing to supposedly help, I mean, some of their followers, the people that support this cause, a lot of them are misguided as to what it's really about. But you can see it in the effects. I know in Minneapolis, Corboy Bala had literally just finished building his bar, a black firefighter had saved for decades. It was his life dream to open this bar and restaurant. And it was burned just weeks before it was to open there in Minneapolis. I mean, how is this movement helping people like him? What we need are to loosen these restrictions, to loosen these regulations, to allow people to do the things that will push their own lives forward, and as they advance, to help others advance.
Right. I mean, Black Lives Matter is a Marxist terrorist organization. They are in black what Antifa is in white. I mean, they're an evil organization. They must be opposed. And that instance that you just mentioned of burning down this guy's bar and grill after years that he'd saved for this black He was a fireman, right?
Yeah.
That years that he had saved. He'd been a firefighter. God knows how many times he'd risked his life, to save innocent lives, including kids. Saved, to build his dream, the American dream, have his own business of the kind he wanted, and these rioters, these thugs, these terrorist thugs, burn it down. It's disgraceful. So yeah. So if we want to, if we care about Black lives, as we should, because all human lives matter, then you're right. We should work to try and undermine the restrictions on being an entrepreneur. You're right. Madam C.J. Walker faced different difficulties, not the ones we face today. To try and eliminate the regulations and the restrictions on entrepreneurship, and we could raise money instead of these companies donate money to this terrorist organization, Black Lives Matter. We could start an organization for Black entrepreneurs, and you would donate money, and we could bring in seasoned entrepreneurs to teach people the way Madam C.J. Walker and Annie Malone taught their employees, how to run a business. Or you could give low interest loans to somebody, money that from philanthropy that's donated voluntarily, that were not coerced out of people, to loan to somebody who's like the fireman you were talking about in Minneapolis, who has this dream, wanting to run his own business. This would be enormously productive. But we have to support capitalism. The founders of Black Lives Matter, most of them anyway, openly state we're trained Marxists, and the goal is to destroy capitalism. So that's not going to help anybody. Socialism, communism. I mean, at this point, is it even debatable? It doesn't help anybody. It kills a lot of people. Murders a lot of innocent people. It doesn't help anybody. So if human life is the standard of value, as Ayn Rand says, and I certainly agree, then I think we need to support Black entrepreneurs and all entrepreneurs, because they create wealth and they make
Yeah.
all of our lives. Capitalism's the system.
I like your idea, and really, we could just take a page there from Benjamin Franklin. We spoke about, I believe, in the second episode of his show. When he died, he left his wealth in several trusts broken up between Philadelphia and Boston. In Philadelphia, they used that money, actually, in both cities, they used the money to give very low interest loans to people who wanted to advance in their careers, mostly in the trades, building trades, plumbing, mechanical trades.
Mm-hmm.
In Philadelphia, they eventually took that money and built a museum of science. And here in Massachusetts, they built the Benjamin Franklin Institute of Technology. And Franklin's money went on to basically launch the careers of thousands of other people that got to repeat his rags to riches tale. So yeah, if there is a solution that isn't already out there, then this is the type of thing that we need. In some To
Yeah,
some extent, our great tech geeks have already sort of solved some of these problems. In Corboy Bala's case, he started a GoFundMe and was able to. His place wasn't insured, so they burnt it to the ground. He had no insurance, but he put up a GoFundMe and he was able to get what he needed to start over again. Unfortunately, his time he can never get back. The many nights and weekends that he spent away from his family, putting in the blood, sweat, and tears to make that happen, he can never get back. But he was able to get that money. So uh,
yeah. That's good. Hopefully he could start his business again in some neighborhood that's more peaceful, that respects the rights of honest people to run their own business and live their own lives. And we should point out too, about Andrew Carnegie, who's along with John D. Rockefeller, they're the most vilified of the so-called robber barons. Well, Carnegie created enormous wealth at Carnegie Steel. I mean, the he brought down the price of steel dramatically, which enabled Henry Ford to sell cars inexpensively and build skyscrapers inexpensively, and John Deere to manufacture farming agricultural equipment inexpensively, and so on. But also the wealth that Carnegie produced and the money he made, he did a lot of philanthropy with it, and a lot of it went to college scholarships for poor hardworking, bright kids, and building libraries where self-made men like him, or who people want to be self-made like him, could get the books necessary, to continuing Franklin's tradition, the great tradition of libraries, where anybody, including poor kids, could get the books necessary to develop their mind, have the education they need to go out into the world, and do really good things, even great things. So again, capitalism shows us the varied ways that good people create wealth and improve human life.
Absolutely. I mean, we can organize and fight for rights at a political level, but at the end of the day, we can't do this without entrepreneurs, black, white, any ethnicity. And really, what makes that possible is the right to do so. So I think Madam C.J. Walker's story just goes to show us what freedom can lead to. America's first self-made female millionaire. Uh,
Right.
Absolutely incredible hero, and so inspiring to me.
Yeah, it really is. And we can't leave the topic without quoting her, right? What she told what she was at the convention of the National Negro Business League. It's a great quote. She said, "quote I am a woman who came from the cotton fields of the South. From there, I was promoted to the wash tub. From there, I was promoted to the cook kitchen. And from there, I promoted myself into the business of manufacturing hair goods and preparations. I have built my own factory on my own ground," unquote. I think, is it one of the biographies of Madam C.J. Walker titled "On My Own Ground"? I believe,
Yeah, I
obviously
believe there's a
taken off.
biography or a yep, or maybe a documentary. I forget, but we'll find it and link to it in the show notes.
Yeah, on my own ground. You can see how justly proud she was, coming from not only very poor economic conditions, but from a race of people who's was brutally persecuted under slavery, and then the Jim Crow era, in which she grew up, and yet she worked so hard, she was so productive, she made all this money, and she bought her own land. And then you can see how proud she is. I built my factory on my own ground. It's mine. It is, yeah. It's the pride of ownership, and the pride of what you could achieve in a society that protects individual rights, even to the extent, even to a limited degree. I mean, the rights of blacks certainly weren't protected to the degree that the rights of whites were back then. But even with limited protection of individual rights, Madam C.J. Walker showed us how much is possible.
She exuded pride, and not just in physical beauty, but again in teaching independence and self-respect. And as Aristotle, said, pride is the crown of the virtues. Well, she practiced that virtue very, very well.
Right. And at the end of her life, I mean, I don't. At the end of her life, 1919, unfortunately, she died too young. Um, but her state was worth, they're not sure from what I've read, somewhere between 500,000 and $1 million in the purchasing power of 1919, which today is purchasing power of millions, several millions of dollars. So we could quibble. Was she the first self-made female millionaire in today's terms? Yes. And we're going to be very, rigorously exact, punctilious in the terms of her own day. Uh, no, but I'm inclined to say, because the purchasing power of the money of 500,000 or more back then is worth millions today. I'm
Yeah.
inclined to grant that honorific, that she was the first self-made
Well,
female millionaire.
yeah. Let's talk about the numbers real quick. So I read about $600,000 just in
Mhm.
the estate, uh, but she gave away just enormous amounts of money before dying, of course. And if you were to add in the price of her real estate, jewelry, and other assets, that put her over 1 million. So 1 million in her own day, and in today's dollars, somewhere around $9 million if you just count the estate, the $600,000 estate. So yeah, I think she deserves
All
that
right.
title of first
Yeah, I
female
do too.
self-made
I do too.
millionaire.
Absolutely. First self-made female millionaire. That's, we got to salute you. I got to salute you, Sarah Breedlove, Madam C.J. Walker, what you accomplished and what you overcame to accomplish. And we're going to sign off. I think we could also point out that several years later, in the 1920s, they from what I've read, Annie Malone was worth several $1,000,000. So she also, an enormously industrious, productive black female entrepreneur, and certainly they are among these two great, brilliantly productive women entrepreneurs are among the first great female businesswomen, female entrepreneurs, and I think they provide a template. They show us how much is possible. Not just for women or blacks or black women, but you know, the great Ernest Shackleton said, obstacles are just things to be overcome, right? Obstacles are just things to be overcome. We all have obstacles to overcome, whether you want to write a book or you want to, you want to rear a family of healthy children in a crazy world. You want to start your own business. You want to compose music. You want to traverse the Antarctic landmass. Whatever it is, we all have obstacles to overcome, and heroes like Madam C.J. Walker show us how much is possible.
Absolutely, she's an example to both inspire and to emulate. We ought to emulate Madam C.J. Walker and go after whatever it is that you're inspired to do in this world. Go solve a problem and take Madam C.J. Walker's example with you.
Right. Now I'm all excited to go home and write a book, because if, by God, Madam C.J. Walker, as a black woman coming from enormously deprived origins in the Jim Crow South, if she could achieve what she achieved, then certainly I could write the books that I wanna write and get them published. Right. This is one of the things heroes do for us, John. They inspire us to be the best versions of ourselves.
You go write your book. I'll go figure out my zoning documents so I can open my recording studio.
I feel for you, buddy, but sometimes heroic deeds are onerous, and we don't live. It's interesting, isn't it? We don't live in the Jim Crow South, and we're not
No,
black, but we live in a
it's an obstacle to
semi-Marxist,
overcome.
yeah, yeah, in a semi-socialist economic system that the Democratic Party wants to push even further, make New York, make it what Caracas on the Hudson, you know.
Retrograd.
But yeah, yeah. But still, we're semi-free, and consequently, we can still fight for our freedom and we can fight for our values. So, John, I wish you to have a very heroic day, my good friend.
Right back at you. And to all our listeners, I hope you're enjoying the show, that you subscribe, and feel free to email me at john@objectivestandard.org. If you have any questions, suggestions, comments, I'd love to hear from you. We'll see you guys soon.
Yeah, have a heroic day, everybody. We'll see you next week.